I will cry to God with my voice, even to God with my voice, and he will give ear and hearken to me. In the day of my trouble, I seek, inquire of, and desperately require the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out in prayer, without slacking up. I refuse to be comforted. I earnestly remember God. I am disquieted, and I groan. I muse in prayer, and my spirit faints, overwhelmed. Selah. Pause and calmly think of that. You hold my eyes from closing. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I consider the days of old, the years of bygone times, of prosperity. I call to remembrance my song in the night. With my heart I meditate, and my spirit searches diligently. Will the Lord cast off forever? And will he be favorable no more? Have his mercy and loving kindness ceased forever? Have his promises ended for all time? Has God deliberately abandoned or forgotten his graciousness? Has he in anger shut up his compassion? Selah. Pause and calmly think of that. And I say, this apparent desertion of Israel by God is my appointed lot and trial. But I will recall the years of the right hand of the Most High, in loving kindness extended toward us. For this is my grief, that the right hand of the Most High changes. I will earnestly recall the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will earnestly remember the wonders you performed for our fathers of old. I will meditate also upon your works and consider all your mighty deeds. Your way, O God, is in the sanctuary, in holiness, away from sin and guilt. Who is a great God like our God? You are the God who does wonders. You have demonstrated your power among the peoples. You have, with your mighty arm, redeemed your people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. Pause and calmly think of that. When the waters at the Red Sea and the Jordan saw you, O God, they were afraid. The deep shuddered also, for all the waters saw you. The clouds poured down water. The sky sent out a sound of rumbling thunder. Your arrows went forth in forked lightning. The voice of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightnings illuminated the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way in delivering your people was through the sea, and your paths through the great waters. Yet your footsteps were not traceable, but were obliterated. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. Psalms 78. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable, in instruction by numerous examples. I will utter dark sayings of old that hide important truth, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but we will tell to the generation to come the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, and his might, and the wonderful works that he has performed. For he established a testimony, an express precept in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, commanding our fathers that they should make the great facts of God's dealings with Israel known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, that the children still to be born might arise and recount them to their children, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but might keep his commandments, and might not be, as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their hearts aright, nor prepared their hearts to know God, and whose spirits were not steadfast and faithful to God. The children of Ephraim were armed and carrying bows, yet they turned their back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of God and refused to walk according to his law, and forgot his works and his wonders that he had shown them, marvelous things he did in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zion, where Pharaoh resided. He divided the Red Sea and caused them to pass through it, and he made the waters stand like a heap. In the daytime also he led them with a pillar of cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He split rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink abundantly, as out of the deep. He brought streams also out of the rock at Ephraim and Kadesh, and caused waters to run down like rivers. Yet they still went on to sin against him by provoking and rebelling against the Most High in the wilderness, in the land of drought. And they tempted God in their hearts by asking for food according to their selfish desire and appetite. Yes, they spoke against God. They said, "Can God furnish the food for a table in the wilderness? Behold, he did smite the rock so that waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. But can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people?" Therefore, when the Lord heard, he was full of wrath. A fire was kindled against Jacob. His anger mounted up against Israel, because in God they believed not. They relied not on him. They adhered not to him, and they trusted not in his salvation, his power to save. Yet he commanded the clouds above and opened the doors of heaven, and he rained down upon them manna to eat, and gave them heaven's grain. Everyone ate the bread of the mighty. Man ate angels' food. God sent them meat in abundance. He let forth the east wind to blow in the heavens, and by his power he guided the south wind. He rained flesh also upon them like the dust, and winged birds' quails like the sand of the seas. And he let the birds fall in the midst of their camp, round about their tents. So they ate and were well filled. He gave them what they craved and lusted after. But scarce had they stilled their cravings, and while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them, and slew the strongest and sturdiest of them, and smote down Israel's chosen youth. In spite of all this, they sinned still more. For they believed not in, relied not on, and adhered not to him for his wondrous works. Therefore their days he consumed like a breath, in emptiness, falsity, and futility, and their years in terror and sudden haste. When he slew some of them, the remainder inquired after him diligently, and they repented and sincerely sought God for a time. And they earnestly remembered that God was their rock, and the Most High their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they flattered him with their mouths and lied to him with their tongues, for their hearts were not right or sincere with him, neither were they faithful and steadfast to his covenant. But he, full of merciful compassion, forgave their iniquity and destroyed them not. Yes, many a time he turned his anger away and did not stir up all his wrath and indignation. For he earnestly remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that goes and does not return. How often they defied and rebelled against him in the wilderness, and grieved him in the desert. And time and again they turned back and tempted God, provoking and incensing the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not seriously the miracles of the workings of his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy, how he wrought the miracles in Egypt and his wonders in the field of Zion, where Pharaoh resided. and turned their rivers into blood and their streams so that they could not drink from them. He sent swarms of venomous flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. He gave also their crops to the caterpillar, and the fruit of their labor to the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost and great chunks of ice. He caused them to shut up their cattle, or gave them up also to the hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. He let loose upon them the fierceness of his anger, his wrath and indignation, distress, by sending a mission of angels of calamity and woe among them. He leveled and made a straight path for his anger, to give it free course. He did not spare the Egyptian families from death, but gave their beasts over to the pestilence, and life of their eldest over to the plague. He smote all the firstborns in Egypt, the chief of their strength in the tents of the land of the sons of Ham. But God led his own people forth like sheep, and guided them with the shepherd's care, like a flock in the wilderness. And he led them on safely and in confident trust, so that they feared not. But the sea overwhelmed their enemies, and he brought them to his holy border, the border of Canaan, his sanctuary, even to his mountain Zion, which his right hand had acquired. He drove out the nations also before Israel, and allotted their land as a heritage, measured out and partitioned, and he made the tribes of Israel to dwell in the tents of those dispossessed. Yet they tempted and provoked and rebelled against the Most High God, and kept not his testimonies, but they turned back and dealt unfaithfully and treacherously like their fathers. They were twisted like a warped and deceitful bow that will not respond to the archer's aim. For they provoked him to righteous anger with their high places for idol worship, and moved him to jealousy with their graven images. When God heard this, he was full of holy wrath, and he utterly rejected Israel, greatly abhorring and loathing her ways, so that he forsook the tabernacle at Shiloh, the tent in which he had dwelt among men, and never returned to it again, and delivered his strength and power, the ark of the covenant, into captivity, and his glory into the hands of the foe, the Philistines. He gave his people over also to the sword, and was wroth with his heritage. The fire of war devoured their young men, and their bereaved virgins were not praised in a wedding song. Their priests Hophni and Phinehas fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation, for the bodies came not back from the scene of battle. And the widow of Phinehas also died that day. Then the Lord awakened as from sleep, as a strong man whose consciousness of power is heightened by wine. And he smote his adversaries in the back as they fled. He put them to lasting shame and reproach. Moreover, he rejected the tent of Joseph, and chose not the tribe of Ephraim, in which the tabernacle had been accustomed to stand. But he chose the tribe of Judah as Israel's leader, Mount Zion, which he loved, to replace Shiloh as his capital. And he built his sanctuary, exalted like the heights of the heavens, and like the earth which he established forever. He chose David his servant, and took him from the sheepfold. From tending the ewes that had their young, he brought him to the shepherd of Jacob, his people, of Israel, his inheritance. So David was their shepherd. With an upright heart, he guided them by the discernment and skillfulness which controlled his hands. Psalm 79. O God, the nations have come into the land of your people, your inheritance. Your sacred temple have they defiled. They have made Jerusalem heaps of ruins. The dead bodies of your servants have they given as food to the birds of the heavens, the flesh of your servants to the beasts of the earth. Their blood they have poured out like water round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. Because of such humiliation, we have become a taunt and reproach to our neighbors, a mocking and derision to those who round about us. How long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? Shall your jealousy, which cannot endure a divided allegiance, burn like fire? Pour out your wrath on the Gentiles nations, who do not acknowledge you, and upon the kingdoms that do not call on your name. For they have devoured Jacob, and laid waste his dwelling and his pasture. O do not earnestly remember against us the iniquities and guilt of our forefathers. Let your compassion and tender mercy speedily come to meet us, for we are brought very low. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name. Deliver us, forgive us, and purge away our sins for your name's sake. Why should the Gentile nations say, "Where is their God?" Let vengeance for the blood of your servants which is poured out be known among the nations in our sight, not delaying until some future generation. Let the groaning and sighing of the prisoner come before you, according to the greatness of your power, and your arm spare those who are appointed to die. And return into the bosom of our neighbors sevenfold the taunts with which they have taunted and scoffed at you, O Lord. Then we, your people, the sheep of your pasture, will give you thanks forever. We will show forth and publish your praise from generation to generation. Psalm 80. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, you who lead Joseph like a flock, you who sit enthroned upon the cherubim of the ark of the covenant. Shine forth before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh. Stir up your might and come to save us. Restore us again, O God, and cause your face to shine in pleasure and approval on us, and we shall be saved. O Lord, God of hosts, how long will you be angry with your people's prayers? You have fed them with the bread of tears, and you have given them tears to drink in large measure. You make us a strife and scorn to our neighbors, and our enemies laugh among themselves. Restore us again, O God of hosts, and cause your face to shine upon us with favor as of old, and we shall be saved. You brought a vine, Israel, out of Egypt. You drove out the heathen nations and planted it in Canaan. You prepared room before it, and it took deep root, and it filled the land. The mountains were covered with the shadow of it, and the boughs of it were like the great cedars, cedars of God. Israel sent out its boughs to the Mediterranean Sea, and its branches to the Euphrates River. Why have you broken down its hedges and walls, so that all who pass by pluck from its fruit? The boar out of the wood wastes it, and the wild beasts of the field feeds on it. Turn again, we beseech you, O God of hosts. Look down from heaven and see, visit, and have regard for this vine. Protect and maintain the stock which your right hand planted, and the branch, the son, that you have reared and made strong for yourself. They have burnt it with fire, it is cut down. May they perish at the rebuke of your countenance. Let your hand be upon the man of your right hand, upon the Son of Man whom you have made strong for yourself. Then will we not depart from you. Revive us, give us life, and we will call upon your name. Restore us, O God of hosts. Cause your face to shine in pleasure, approval, and favor on us, and we shall be saved. Psalm 81. Sing aloud to God our strength. Shout for joy to the God of Jacob. Raise a song. Sound the timbrel, the sweet lyre with the harp. Blow the trumpet at the new moon, at the full moon on our feast day. For this is a statute for Israel, an audience of the God of Jacob. This he ordained in Joseph, the Saviour, for a testimony when he went out over the land of Egypt. The speech of one whom I knew not did I hear, saying, I removed his shoulder from the burden, his hands were freed from the basket. You called in distress, and I delivered you. I answered you in the secret place of thunder. I tested you at the waters of Meribah. Selah. Pause and calmly think of that. Hear, O my people, and I will admonish you, O Israel, if you would listen to me. There shall no strange god be among you, neither shall you worship any alien god. I am the Lord your God, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it. But my people would not hearken to my voice, and Israel would have none of me. So I gave them up to their own hearts' lusts, and let them go after their own stubborn will, that they might follow their own counsels. Oh, that my people would listen to me, that Israel would walk in my ways. Speedily then I would subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their adversaries. Had Israel listened to me in Egypt, then those who hated the Lord would have come cringing before him, and their defeat would have lasted forever. God would feed Israel now also with the finest of the wheat, and with honey out of the rock would I satisfy you. Psalm 82. God stands in the assembly of the representatives of God. In the midst of the magistrates or judges, he gives judgment as among the gods. How long will you magistrates or judges judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Selah. Pause and calmly think of that. Do justice to the weak, poor, and fatherless. Maintain the rights of the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rescue them out of the hand of the wicked. The magistrates and judges know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in the darkness of complacent satisfaction. All the foundations of the earth, the fundamental principles upon which rest the administrations of justice, are shaking. I said, you are gods, since you judge on my behalf as my representatives. Indeed, all of you are children of the Most High. But you shall die as men and fall as one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for to you belongs all the nations.